It's huge, magnificent, and essential.
Steel, tall, patriotic.
I would say the bridge was very important part of society. I just think that we need the Key Bridge.
Essential to Baltimore, both in name and purpose. If we look at the name of the bridge, it obviously carries a tremendous amount of historical significance and is a symbol of our perseverance as a country.
The Key Bridge, for me, it's inspiration, it's pride, and it's legacy.
Hard-working people. Every time I ever went across that bridge, you saw both communities on each side of the bridge, and then you looked out into the harbor and saw basically the roots of Baltimore there. And so it just always reminded me of the hard-working people that basically support the Port of Baltimore.
Iconic, beacon, Baltimore.
Iconic, just on that skyline, that particular bridge. Connective, the communities on either side of it, going back and forth.
It was an icon in the across the water that we looked for and we thought would always be there.
Beautiful.
Well, it was beautiful.
You could see it from any high point in Baltimore. As this community college, you can look over and you could see the crown of the arch. And if you're in West Baltimore, you can have a straight line of, well, that's home.
Home sweet home. And I say that because anytime we would be on the road, traveling home, or even commuting from one county or one part of the state to the next, when we got to the Key Bridge, you was home. And it was just, okay, come on, Dundalk. We're almost there. And when we travel across that bridge, we would be home.
The Francis Scott Key Bridge is interesting in that, like a lot of infrastructure, we take it for granted. We just sort of always think it's going to be there. It was a defining piece of the interstate system in Maryland in that it finishes 695. And it was the last piece that had to be put together in that puzzle to make that loop work.
The Key Bridge, to me, right, when they were building it, we used to go up there when it was mounds and mounds and mounds of dirt, and some guys who hit golf balls and all that kind of thing, right?
My father was an iron worker with Local 16 for over 30 plus years. He was very proud of the work that he did. He did a lot of the welding, a lot of the on the larger, very high, he would be the one that goes up really super high. This work is very hard and dangerous. Daddy would be in the coldest of colds and the hottest of days and nights.
So when the bridge was being built, I worked at Bethlehem Steel when I was a union official, right? So I knew the day that they were gonna christen the bridge. So I bring my binoculars and I sit on the job and I'm watching them drive across the toll bridge and things of that nature, right? But also, some of our co-workers that lived on the Eastern Shore had to come across the bridge. Well, they came across the bridge eventually, but they had to go through the harbor tunnel. So it's a component, and we never knew how much it meant until they got here.
It's a big part of the infrastructure story of Maryland, of sort of knitting the state together in the 20th century. Completed in the 1970s, it was one of the longest spans put together in an interstate system.
Growing up in Turner Station, transportation was a huge part of our survival. At least for me, it was a way for my family to seek better opportunities. After all, it's a historically black community. Many of the people that live in that community worked at Sparrows Point or at some of the car processing plants or any of the other manufacturing plants that used to dot along the port community.
Easy commute. Why don't you move? Well, why should I? I have a bridge, 2 tunnels, and a highway. I can be anywhere up and down the East Coast in a matter of hours.
My community literally being an eye shot of the bridge. If you needed to go to the motor vehicles in Glen Burnie, you're 15 minutes away.
The bridge was very important to the broader trucking industry. It served as a backbone of freight transport in the region and was a very important alternative to the tunnels, particularly for overweight or hazardous cargoes. So yeah, it was critically important to the trucking industry in the region.
The first time I saw it up close was when my family was moving back to Maryland from New York, and we were in a red Honda Civic, and I'd fallen asleep for much of the ride, and when we crossed over the bridge was really when it helped to awaken, knowing that it wasn't just crossing over a bridge, but it was a connection to a new world and a new life for our family. And that meant connecting people to communities and opportunities and a life that they hope for. So I think it really stood as a very symbolic place for me and my family.
I just want people to not forget about this community and how we are really connected to the bridge, and it was our lifeline. It was just something that's always been there.
I think people that are maybe removed from it, that didn't travel over it, didn't fish under, didn't boat around it, didn't live near it, didn't see it on a daily basis, would think that, hey, it's just a bridge. Why are people so emotionally attached to it now that it's gone? But I think when you see something that frames your city, that you've seen for 40 years, and then it's tragically gone, obviously not to mention the lives lost, I think to a lot of people it's more than a bridge.
So for 10 years, my commute to work in the morning was using the Key Bridge, and very often the timing was just right, that the sun would rise over the Chesapeake, and it was a brilliant view from the Key Bridge.
I was a toll operator at the Key Bridge for 18 years.
I worked at the Key Bridge for almost 30 years.
I used to work 10 to 6, and me and the other toll collectors, we used to sit outside. We wasn't supposed to, and we used to sit outside and just have good, meaningful conversations and laugh all night, like to keep each other woke.
As a toll shift supervisor, my duties were to do basically whatever the toll collectors needed me to do. If they needed change or they needed paper or anything they needed, and just to keep an eye on them, make sure they were safe.
I got to know a lot of people as far as coming through the toll, and we had customers as far as like they would bring us stuff like the ice cream man in the summertime. Everybody liked the fact that I smiled, because they were like, when I go to the other toll booths, they don't smile. You always smile. And I was like, I'm here to make you happy. Like, I just like to smile. They were the ones I knew the most, the port drivers, the Bethlehem Steel drivers, and a lot of people that worked at that little restaurant in Dundalk and Logan's Point.
Captain Harvey's sub shop was where a lot of people went. Even they came over the bridge to go there because they would ask for turnaround passes to go back, so they didn't have to pay both ways to get a sub.
It was beautiful, especially like when it rained and you would see like the double rainbows over there. I used to like when the planes used to fly up over the Key Bridge all the time. It was pretty nice.
But we could watch the ships go under it. The cruise ships were nice to watch going under it, and like she said, the planes going over it. So yeah, it was a nice view.
the thing that touches me the most, right, is that because every window in my house that's facing the bridge, you can see the bridge. And for that bridge to fall like that, it's just like, it's unbelievable. And then I thought I was in Vietnam, so. We're in the house, my wife and I, and we're looking at TV. And there was a sound, boom, boom. And then a gust of wind came. And the wind knocked the trash cans over. So my wife asked me, say, what is that? I said, they're working up on the damn bridge, right? That was one, boom. Then there was another one, boom. And with each boom, the house shook. The house shook. And my wife said, there's something going on. I said, they're working on the bridge, right? And then when the wind pushed the cans over, I just think it was a gust of wind, right? So moments later, my daughter called me and said, Dad, I'm so glad to hear your voice. I said, what are you talking about? She said, unless you go across that Key Bridge, the Key Bridge fell in the water. I said, get out of here. She said, Dad, it fell in the water.
Oh my goodness, that was the most horrifying day. I'm an early person, I get up early. I received a call about 4 o'clock in the morning. When you get a call that early, it makes you panic, and I'm thinking about family, what has happened. And someone said, Gloria, are you up? I know you get up early. Are you watching TV? I said, wow, what's happening? They said the Key Bridge collapsed. I said, I don't believe you. And when they said that, my heart dropped. Tears began to flow.
I was working late, and it came through one of my feeds on my Facebook. And immediately I called some family members, because we were in the transportation line, and explained to them, I said, you're not going to believe this, but I just got a feed that the bridge just went down. And of course, you're like, it's stunning. You're shocked. You're like, nah, not the bridge. I said, yeah, the bridge is gone.
It was kind of a sleepy camera. In other words, there weren't a whole lot of people that watched it at the time. Maybe 10 people would be watching it. If the United States Coast Guard Eagle or the largest container ship or the Pride of Baltimore came by, you might have 25 people watching. That morning, there were 10,000 people watching. We would point the camera at the Key Bridge because the Key Bridge and then behind the Key Bridge is Seagirt Marine Terminal, and it's all lit up at night, and it was quite a nice, pretty shot at night. So we would kind of park the camera there at night when no one was actually manually driving the camera.
It felt like several days that first day.
First thing, there's a level of disbelief.
I mean, the bridge is still on the boat.
Yes.
Like a large amount of it.
Yeah.
This is unprecedented.
Wow. Horrible, man.
Knowing that there were millions of Marylanders who were about to wake up and realize something that was so certain to them, which is that the Key Bridge would be there the next morning, that was not going to be the case. And just realize the daunting task that we had ahead of us.
It was both devastating and unbelievable to just imagine this not there any longer. Obviously, it's in the middle of the night, a lot of uncertainty with what's happening, just visually, even what's happening, but just total unbelief.
I was the person who was on call that entire week, and I remember at 1:46 in the morning, I got a phone call from our dispatch that said that there was a partial or full collapse of the Key Bridge. And what I remember from that call was that after he said that, the dispatcher goes, "We heard it." And there was that weird, timbre in his voice, was like something was up.
The first time I saw what had happened was probably like most other people. It was the YouTube video that was out there. I saw that at 4 a.m. on the cell phone, and it was surreal too. I mean, it just, as many people have said, it just looked like it was a movie set and not something that really could have happened.
That video that everyone's seen hit X Twitter. And that was the moment I looked at my boss and went, the entire bridge is gone. That was the moment in my mind where I realized that the world has changed, that MDTA has changed, that Maryland has changed, that Baltimore has changed. That was, it's not just a partial collapse, not something that we can repair in a week or a day, that this was a disaster.
I remember when I first saw the wreckage, it took my breath away. I thought about, and I was looking at all the divers and the workers who were in the water, knowing that that they were searching for individuals who we ended up losing. That we saw just how many people were out there standing from their porches and looking and trying to get an understanding of what happened.
We lost 6 people that day. And that's something, every time that I look at the gaping hole in the Baltimore landscape, I think about those 6 people, because they started their day doing what hundreds of people across the MDTA and MDOT do every day, which is repairing the roads so that they're safe for other people to drive on. Their day started out normal, and their families' days ended horribly.
It just reinforces, the danger a lot of our workers face every day. We saw it on the Beltway almost a year prior to this event at the Key Bridge.
The parallel between these 2 tragedies is haunting and unsettling. Both occurred on Interstate 695. Both happened almost exactly a year apart. Both claimed the lives of 6 dedicated transportation workers.
We work in a dangerous environment. A lot of our workers, a lot of our contractors, and we've always got to do everything possible we can to protect them.
We must follow their lead and confront crisis with courage.
So there was a construction detail going on, which MDTA police was on either side of the bridge to stop traffic whenever needed based on what the construction workers was doing. Once the call came out and then he understood of the possibilities of an issue, they then shut down the bridge on either side, stopping traffic from going across. And that was one of the things that saved a lot of people's lives.
It's a little tough to even talk about, to be honest. Immediately stopped traffic that was traveling 695 inner loop, heading over to Key Bridge. When I first saw the scene, it was a bit overwhelming. A year later, we're coming up on the anniversary. Still have the same feelings. We still lost the same 6 souls that we were unable to save that night.
I could not be prouder of the camaraderie, teamwork they showed from dispatch to police in order to handle a situation that no one could have ever seen coming. But they worked hand in hand. You got to understand from a police perspective, dispatchers are our lifeline. So we can get to a scene, but we need to really understand what all is going on, and we rely on them for that constant communication. So as a chief of police, I could not be more proud.
They had it under control, that they did what they needed to do. They were answering the calls. They were speaking to, I believe the chief of police had come there. Everybody who came there were able to give them the information they needed and get the people in place that needed to be in place when they needed to be there. It was such a relief when I arrived to work, and the work that they had done, the work that they were prepared to do or trained to do, they were able to handle that. So the first 15 minutes, yes, it was a scary time. It was very, very scary. But when I got there, I was truly so proud to again work with the group of dispatchers that were there that evening and know that they handled themselves, or see the way that they handled themselves in that situation.
The rescue divers faced rather extreme conditions. You were talking about over 80 divers from federal, state, and local partners working side by side using various pieces of equipment, sonar, everything under the sun
that they could to help bring closure in this matter and locate those that were lost in this incident. All while doing this, they're navigating pieces of debris, be it concrete or anything sharp that could potentially affect their air supply. It was slow, it was methodical, and oftentimes they couldn't see anything at all. They were simply feeling their way around and trying to figure out what they were dealing with, how safe it was to proceed. I'd have to say, I've worn this uniform for over 30 years. When the state police went into action, it was probably the proudest moment I've ever had in uniform.
I think I've always had a sense of understanding the importance of what we do and how at a moment's notice it could be life or death. But when you see your personnel actually respond and handle, see, to practice something is one thing. To actually do it is totally different.
But just moments before that fatal tragedy, there were MDTA police officers who helped to rescue those in trouble and who cleared the bridge to keep drivers from meeting a fatal journey in the pitch of the dark. While we slept, they met the moment. Along with our dispatchers and other first responders from all across the state, and in the process, they literally saved countless lives. And they are here with us today. And I'd like to ask each and every one of them to please stand as I recognize them by name. Corporal Jeremy Herbert. Officer Gary Kurtz. Sergeant Paul Pasterik. And Officer Timothy Baldwins.
My job was to keep the press where they were supposed to be, to keep them informed, which at that time we didn't know how many press we were getting. They started coming around 3 o'clock, and they kept coming, and then they kept coming, and they kept coming, and they kept coming. And so all of a sudden we got press from France, press from Spain, press from Japan, Russia.
To have factual, timely, empathetic, and constant and consistent communication from leaders, from community folks, it meant the world. It actually kept people from panicking.
The leadership that was exhibited by Governor Moore, the establishment of his 4 priorities, making sure it was, again, mission first, but people always.
And making sure that you knew that no one was going to be left behind. And so getting that economy going, making sure that those families got the supports that they needed and the closure that they needed, making sure that our workers did not have undue harm to them and their families when they did nothing wrong, and making sure that one day people could look up and see that Francis Scott Key Bridge. Those became the North Stars that we focused on, and I believed, as I still believe, that in those moments of crisis, you have to be able to present calm and courage in that.
Obviously, the incident command, the initial effort of it was how we did it. But basically every morning we started off at the first thing in the morning. We had a very set agenda. We kept it very focused.
I had just been here for 40 days, but I'd known a lot of the senior leaders. So there was a trust in that they knew their jobs and what they did. So a lot of that came together kind of just because you have a group of professionals and they know what you're doing.
I have never seen a team or a group come together and cooperate and communicate like this team did. From that first moment, the unified command, the way that the Coast Guard came in, the Army Corps of Engineers, and then bringing the salvage companies together. Every day that everybody walked into that cruise terminal that became the incident command center, egos were left at the door. It didn't matter the rank, it didn't matter the expertise. Everybody came together, and that's rare.
The response of everyone, just basically just unbelievable how people just said, no, we have a mission here, we're going to go after it, and that's what they did. A lot of people putting their own lives at risk to try to deal with some of the issues they were dealing with.
When people told us it would take 11 months, we got it done in 11 weeks. And what I'm most proud of is we got it done without a single injury.
So the interesting thing about the bridge, and any bridge, is that, you know, metaphorically but also physically, it knits places together. It connects communities, and that's no different for the Francis Scott Key Bridge. It knit together the disparate communities of Baltimore and allowed for the free flow and transit of people and ideas, and particularly commerce. And its departure, its loss is a big blow to those communities.
It was a lifeline. Didn't realize it until after it had collapsed, how we just took it for advantage, assumed that it would always be there. We traveled back and forth. We would go back and forth to Key Bridge maybe 2 and 3 times a day and think nothing of it. Now we have second thoughts about going through the tunnel and going around the Beltway, and it added 30 minutes on to a commute just to get to Glen Burnie, even to shop or to eat.
We lost a level of our security because the police station used to be underneath the bridge, and they would ride up and down the roads, right, do things like that. Now I just see a police department and there's a fence.
The bridge was incredibly important to our business, both from an operations standpoint and an employee standpoint. So as a logistics company, you know, we have trucks on the road every day, and they would often utilize the Key Bridge. And it was a very important piece of infrastructure that we traversed every day that allowed us to optimize our routes and reduce transit times.
So it's definitely economically impacting a lot of folks. Folks who work at, let's say, Trade Point Atlantic, Spurs Point, all they have to do is cross the bridge. They can be at work in a matter of minutes. Now, you just can't.
It took a big team to get to this moment. It took a unified team to get to this moment. And this moment is a really big deal. And now, we are grateful to unveil the design for the new Francis Scott Key Bridge.
Well, the new bridge is going to be a memorial structure. It's going to invoke some of the past features of the bridge, but more importantly, it's going to serve as a wonderful gateway to the city of Baltimore. It's going to reflect the values of the city, and it's also going to connect community and restore commerce.
Pre-construction is already underway on both land and water, with demolition set to begin this spring. And soon, Maryland's first cable-stayed bridge will rise, not just replacing what we lost, but revealing what we have found: strength and unity in our state.
The public will have the opportunity through an open public comment period to weigh in on features like the lighting, certain lighting packages. There'll be the color of the structural steel over the water. And there are also some features of artistic steel art on certain approaches to the bridge.
While this is a beautiful bridge, it will also be a working bridge for a working city. I look forward to putting Baltimore's mark on this bridge by working with the communities on aesthetic designs such as lighting, steel girder color, and planned artwork for the bridge. This will add character and uniqueness from Charm City.
It's going to mean an enormous relief. I mean, there's going to probably be maybe equally or more joy when the new one is constructed and opened. And of course, you know, we're going to regain that pride.
Well, I certainly hope that the new bridge will be where residents will love it like we did the former bridge. It will be a sense of connection back, reconnecting us to be able to freely go cross the waters and without having fear.
I would know that the construction will start when I hear that boat coming up, pulling along, and just hearing the pylons being done. But it would mean that resilience and rebirth, because traffic can flow again, and commutes, you don't have to add an extra 30 minutes to your commute.
But I just feel like a reconnection, because some folks, they would travel back and forth to church, and maybe they're not doing it as frequently as they are. I have a grandson who lives in Glen Burnie, or near airport, and he says, oh my goodness, it takes me an additional half an hour just to come over to try to visit you.
I think the trucking industry is very happy that the state is expediting the project. I think it gives everyone, peace of mind that we'll have this infrastructure restored. Having that reliable and efficient infrastructure will allow us to optimize our routes again, to improve transit times, and just overall offer a higher level of service to our customers. So I think that alone will help us expand our services.
And that's why it's so assuring to see the Moore Miller administration move quickly to rebuild it.
If I had to pick 3 words to describe the road ahead, the first one, I think I would use remembrance. So I think it's important that we remember the lives of those lost in this tragedy.
I would say the first one is going to be better. We're going to do better. It's going to be better. That's the road ahead.
We have to be deliberate in making sure the bridge is what it should be. And we have to be aware, because we're talking about billions of dollars.
Marvelous, ingenious.
The words that would describe it is determined, and united, and hope.
Hopeful.
Positive. I think that there's a commitment for everyone to basically, try to heal, and then to obviously rebuild the port of Baltimore and the bridge itself.
So I think it's obviously challenging. I think it's going to be ever-changing. It's going to be different parts of this process that we just have to adapt to. Many different elements to it over the course of the rebuild. And rewarding. I think it'll be very rewarding to just get the bridge back up, connect our communities, and really continue to honor the victims that we lost that day.
I think collaboration is a big one, because we have to collaborate with communities. We have to be optimistic.
I think resilience, determination, excitement.
Resilience. I think we as a industry, as a port community, as a state, showed a tremendous amount of resilience. And that gives me a lot of hope for our ability to handle challenges in the future.
Now I'll parse it down to the word pride. Pride. We're going to regain our pride and our standing, in the global community.